There's a certain kind of man a woman never forgets, not because of his looks, not because of his money, but because of his energy, his presence, the way he moves through life with quiet power. He doesn't chase, he doesn't beg, he doesn't need validation, because he's grounded, anchored in something far deeper than external approval. That something is Stoicism. The ancient Stoic philosophers, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, taught a way of life that produces strength, peace, and self-respect. They believed the greatest victory isn't over others, but over yourself. And in today's world, where distraction, insecurity, and emotional chaos dominate, the Stoic man stands out like a lighthouse in a storm. He doesn't try to impress, he embodies calm confidence, and that is exactly the type of man a woman never forgets. In this video, we'll explore 7 timeless Stoic principles that shape a man into someone unforgettable, someone who commands quiet respect, and who leaves a lasting mark on every woman he meets. He masters his emotions. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius. In relationships, emotions can be both a source of connection and destruction. Most men react impulsively. Anger, jealousy, insecurity. They let emotions control their behavior. But the Stoic man, he's different. He feels deeply, yet he's not ruled by those feelings. When a woman tests him, pulls away, becomes distant, or says something that would normally trigger ego, he doesn't lose composure. He breathes. He stays grounded, because he understands that control over himself is the foundation of power. Historically, Epictetus, who was born a slave, endured humiliation and suffering, yet taught that true freedom is found not in external liberty, but in mastering the self. Women are deeply drawn to this kind of centered energy, because emotional stability equals safety, and safety equals attraction. Practical advice. When emotions rise, don't act, observe. Journal your reactions daily. Ask, what part of this was within my control? Practice silence before reaction. It builds discipline. When you control your emotions, you radiate power, and that calm, collected presence lingers in a woman's memory long after you're gone. In a world that glorifies reaction, where every insult demands a comeback, every rejection sparks rage, and every setback triggers despair, the man who remains calm is rare. He is the exception. This calmness isn't weakness, it's mastery. It's what the Stoics called apatheia, not indifference, but freedom from the tyranny of emotions. You see, emotions are natural. They are signals. But when you become your emotions, and when anger drives your actions, when fear dictates your words, when sadness paralyzes your decisions, you surrender your throne. A man who masters his emotions doesn't suppress them. He studies them, understands them, and rules over them like a wise king rules his kingdom. And that mastery changes everything. It shapes how you lead, how you love, and how you live. The Stoic foundation: power over the mind. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius. This single sentence by Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, captures the essence of Stoic mastery. Marcus ruled over millions, led armies, faced betrayals, plagues, and loss. Yet he wrote meditations as a private journal to remind himself that the mind is the only domain of true control. He knew, you cannot control what others say. You cannot control the weather, the markets, or fate itself. But you can control how you respond. That's where all power begins, in the pause between stimulus and response. When anger arises, the Stoic doesn't instantly react. He observes it, analyzes it, and asks, is this within my control? Does this serve my virtue? That moment of self-awareness separates the wise from the impulsive, because reaction is slavery. Response is strength. Emotions are messengers, not masters. The Stoics never said don't feel. They said don't be ruled. Anger, fear, sadness. These emotions are natural human signals. They tell you something important, that your values are being challenged, your ego is being triggered, or your expectations are clashing with reality. But here's where most people go wrong. They confuse emotion with truth. Just because you feel something doesn't mean it's true. Epictetus taught this brilliantly. Born a slave, he lived under cruelty, yet he achieved inner freedom through emotional discipline. He said, "It's not things that disturb us, but our judgments about things," meaning, it's not the event, but your interpretation of the event that causes suffering. If someone insults you, the words themselves are harmless. It's your judgment. They disrespected me, and that creates pain. The Stoic understands this distinction deeply. He doesn't deny emotion. He interprets it correctly. Modern chaos. Emotional slavery in the age of distraction. Look around, the emotional control is almost extinct. Social media has turned outrage into currency. Relationships crumble because people can't sit with discomfort. Men lose control over jealousy, anger, and desire, mistaking emotional volatility for passion. But Stoicism is the antidote. It's the ancient technology of emotional regulation. In modern terms, emotional mastery is emotional intelligence with discipline. It's the ability to feel fully, but choose wisely. When your partner tests you, when life throws uncertainty your way, when rejection stings, your calmness becomes your shield. That unshakable energy makes you magnetic, because true confidence is emotional composure. The ancient test. Marcus Aurelius and the fire within. Imagine Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of the Roman Empire, waking before dawn, exhausted from war, betrayed by close allies, surrounded by chaos. He could have lashed out, punished, destroyed. Instead, he wrote in his private journal, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, jealous, and surly. Yet none of them can harm me." He reminded himself daily that how others behave is outside his control, but how he responds defines his virtue. This is the purest form of masculine strength. The ability to face injustice without bitterness, to face pain without panic, to face betrayal without revenge. Marcus didn't conquer Rome by emotion. He conquered himself, and through that, he ruled an empire. Emotional weakness and attraction in relationships. Emotion can either connect or destroy. A woman instinctively feels the energy of a man who can't control himself. The man who argues impulsively, who seeks validation, who breaks down when faced with emotional tests. That energy repels her because it signals instability. But when a man remains calm, when he listens without reacting, when he holds his frame during chaos, when he expresses emotion without collapsing into it, she feels safe. And safety in emotional terms is attraction, because mastery over emotion equals mastery over energy. And feminine energy is drawn to that grounded masculine presence. This is not manipulation. It's natural polarity. Emotional control is the core of masculine presence, the calm center that draws everything toward it. The Stoic technique, the pause. The Stoics practiced a method we'd now call the pause. Whenever they felt anger or fear rising, they didn't react. They paused and observed the emotion and labeled it. This is anger. This is fear. This is pride. By naming it, they separated themselves from it. In modern psychology, this is called cognitive distancing, the ability to observe emotion without being consumed by it. That pause creates choice, and choice creates power, because emotion only controls you when you identify with it. Once you can say, "I feel anger," instead of "I am angry," you've already won 7 turning emotion into virtue. The Stoics didn't suppress emotion, they transformed it. Anger became courage, fear became prudence, desire became discipline. Seneca, in his essay on anger, described anger as a temporary madness. He warned that nothing destroys judgment faster than emotional outburst. But he also taught that those same emotions could be redirected toward purpose. Your frustration can fuel your focus. Your pain can strengthen your patience. Your sadness can deepen your empathy. Every emotion is raw energy. The Stoic doesn't waste it. He channels it. The practical path. How to master emotions. Daily emotional mastery is not a one-time achievement. It's a daily discipline. Here's how to practice it in your own life. Morning reflection, Marcus's practice. Before the day begins, visualize challenges you'll face. Expect difficulty. When it comes, you won't be surprised, you'll be ready. Evening journaling, Seneca's method. Review your day. Where did you lose your temper? What emotion controlled you? What can you improve tomorrow? The pause technique. Before reacting, breathe deeply 3 times. This shifts your brain from emotional reactivity to rational clarity. Detach from external validation. If someone praises or insults you, treat both as irrelevant to your inner worth. As Marcus said, ambition means tying your well-being to what others say or do. Sanity means tying it to your own actions. Control inputs. The content you consume shapes your emotions. Avoid constant news, gossip, and negativity. Feed your mind with philosophy, purpose, and silence. 9. Freedom. Through control, Epictetus was crippled, enslaved, and beaten. Yet when someone mocked his physical condition, he said calmly, "You may fetter my leg, but not even Zeus has power over my will." That's ultimate freedom, the kind no man or woman can give or take away. When you master your emotions, you stop being a slave to circumstance. You stop chasing peace outside yourself. You become self-contained, unshakable, and that calmness, that inner fire, it doesn't just attract people, it commands respect because everyone, consciously or not, seeks stability, and the man who embodies it becomes unforgettable. Conclusion. The quiet power of the Stoic man. The Stoic man doesn't suppress his emotions, he shapes them. He feels everything. Love, anger, grief, but nothing owns him. He's like the ocean, deep, powerful, and unmoved by surface storms. In a world of emotional chaos, this composure becomes sacred, because true strength isn't shouting, fighting, or pretending not to care. It's calmness under pressure, it's peace in chaos, it's control in temptation, and that's why he who masters his emotions masters his life, and that man is never forgotten. He lives by his principles, not approval. If you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Epictetus, the modern world rewards conformity. Most men bend themselves to please, to fit in, to impress, to avoid rejection. But the Stoic man? He lives by his own code. Marcus Aurelius, as emperor of Rome, the most powerful man on earth, constantly reminded himself to stay humble, fair, and aligned with virtue, not popularity. He wrote in his journal, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Women may test your boundaries, and not because they want to control you, but because they want to feel that your values are real. When you say no and mean it. When you don't compromise your integrity for short-term comfort, you separate yourself from every other man." Practical advice. Define your personal code. What do you stand for? Never say what you don't mean. If something feels wrong morally or spiritually, walk away calmly, not dramatically. A man who stands for something, even when it costs him, commands lasting respect. And a woman will never forget the man who never betrayed his own soul in a world that constantly demands your attention, your agreement, and your conformity. The rarest kind of man is the one who lives by his own code. He doesn't seek permission to be himself. He doesn't mold his character to please others. He lives by principle, not by approval. This is one of the most powerful Stoic traits a man can possess. Because while most people drift through life, guided by opinions, validation, and fear of rejection, the Stoic man moves differently. He walks a straight path, not because it's easy, but because it's right. He knows that moral clarity, discipline, and truth are worth far more than popularity or praise. And this quiet consistency, is what women deeply notice and never forget. The foundation of integrity. Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Marcus Aurelius. Marcus Aurelius ruled the most powerful empire in the world. He could have had anything. Luxury, attention, obedience. But in his private writings, later known as meditations, he constantly reminded himself to live with virtue. He wrote not for others, but for himself, to stay anchored amidst temptation and flattery. He practiced humility, fairness, and justice, even when surrounded by power. That's the essence of integrity, doing what's right when no one is watching. Modern men often confuse confidence with ego and leadership with control. But true leadership, the Stoic kind, begins within. It's about holding yourself to a moral code, even when no one applauds you for it. Practical application. Every day, ask yourself, if no one could see my actions, would I still do this? Choose what aligns with your values, not what gains you approval. Let virtue, not vanity, be your compass. Integrity builds inner peace, and that peace is magnetic. It cannot be faked. The strength to be misunderstood. If you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Epictetus understood that truth often isolates the man who lives by it. When you follow your own path, people will question you. They'll label you arrogant, distant, or strange, because your independence threatens their conformity. But the Stoic man doesn't live for validation. He is content to be misunderstood, because he answers to a higher standard, his conscience. In relationships, this same principle applies. A man who bends himself to win approval loses respect, but a man who stands firm, even when it costs him, becomes unforgettable. Women might not always agree with such a man, but they will always respect him, because deep down, they recognize that authenticity is a sign of rare strength. Practical application. Stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. When criticized, pause before reacting. Ask, is this about my values or their comfort? Remember, a lion doesn't need to convince sheep. You'll find freedom in being disliked for who you truly are, rather than being loved for a mask. Living by virtue, not by image in Stoic philosophy. Virtue is the only true good. Everything else, and fame, wealth, opinion, is secondary. Seneca warned about men who live for applause rather than character. He said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." And in today's world of constant social validation, likes, followers, comparisons, this truth hits even harder. Most people live to be seen, not to be real. The Stoic man rejects that game entirely. He values self-respect more than recognition. He knows that public approval fades quickly, but private peace lasts forever. When you stop performing for others, your actions become cleaner, simpler, and more powerful. You no longer need to chase validation, because your worth no longer depends on the crowd's noise. Practical application. Live your life as if no one will ever know. Would your choices still honor you? Post less, reflect more. Before any decision, ask, would I do this if no one were watching? When you live by virtue, your inner world becomes unshakable, and that quiet strength leaves a permanent mark on anyone who encounters it. Boundaries as a form of self-respect. A man without boundaries cannot live by principle. The Stoics believed that saying no is a moral act. It protects your time, energy, and integrity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." And boundaries are the practical expression of that truth. Most men break their own boundaries to keep others happy. They tolerate disrespect, neglect their priorities, or accept less than they deserve, all in the name of approval. But every time you betray your boundaries, you chip away at your self-respect. A Stoic man knows his limits. He gives, but he never gives himself away. Practical application. Say no without guilt. Silence is more powerful than justification. Don't negotiate your standards for short-term pleasure. If something compromises your peace, step back. Calmly, but firmly. The man who respects his own limits teaches others to do the same, and that, in itself, is unforgettable. The discipline of consistency. Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself. Marcus Aurelius living. By principle isn't about perfection, it's about consistency. The Stoics didn't aim to be flawless. They aimed to be disciplined. Every day, Marcus Aurelius wrote reminders to himself about humility, focus, and control. He understood that strength isn't built in grand gestures, it's built in daily habits. Consistency creates trust both in yourself and in others. When people see that you act the same in private as in public, your presence becomes reliable. Women especially notice this because it communicates emotional maturity and moral steadiness. Practical application. Do what you say you'll do, even in small things. Keep your routines sacred. Your morning, your health, your word. When you fail, reflect and don't excuse. Improvement is your only apology. Consistent man doesn't need to boast, and his character speaks quietly but powerfully. Freedom. From the approval trap, Epictetus said that the man who seeks approval becomes a slave to whoever gives it. Think about that. If your happiness depends on how others see you, you'll never truly be free. You'll modify your words, your actions, even your beliefs just to keep peace or to be liked. But freedom, the Stoics taught, is the ability to live according to your nature, guided by reason and virtue, not by fear. And paradoxically, when you stop chasing approval, you earn genuine respect, because people, especially women, are drawn to those who stand firm in who they are. Practical application. Before any choice, ask, am I doing this for truth or for approval? Spend more time alone. Solitude strengthens your moral backbone. Detach from praise and criticism equally. Both are fleeting. When your self-worth comes from within, you become unshakable. Approval becomes optional. Authenticity becomes your power. The quiet power of authenticity. In the end, living by principle is not about rebellion. It's about alignment between who you are, what you believe, and how you act. The Stoic man doesn't pretend. He doesn't change to fit the crowd. He knows that honesty, even when uncomfortable, is the deepest form of strength, because truth doesn't need performance, it simply is. And that's what makes such a man unforgettable. Women remember not just what he said, but how his presence made them feel. Steady, safe, grounded, real. That kind of energy cannot be imitated. It must be earned through a life built on principle. Practical application. Speak truth gently, but without fear. Live so your actions never require explanation. Align your daily choices with your highest values. Authenticity isn't loud, it's quiet, firm and deeply rooted, and that quiet integrity echoes in memory long after words fade. Final reflection. Soft instrumental music swells. Cinematic, emotional close. Narrator. The Stoic man doesn't seek to be liked. He seeks to be right. Right in thought, right in action, right in heart. He is guided by an inner compass that doesn't waver with trends or temptations. He knows that living by principle will sometimes cost him comfort, but it will always reward him with peace, and that's the kind of man women never forget. Not because he was perfect, but because he was real, steady, rooted, unmoved by the winds of approval. He lives by his principles, and that, in a world built on appearance, is the rarest form of power. He practices detachment without indifference. Don't demand that things happen as you wish, but wish that they happen as they do happen, and you will go on well. Epictetus. There's a fine line between detachment and indifference. Detachment means inner freedom. You love, you give, you care, but you are not enslaved by the outcome. Indifference is emotional coldness. The Stoic man isn't cold, he's free. He can love deeply and still let go gracefully. He doesn't chase after what's leaving, nor does he cling to what's comfortable. Women feel this energy, the rare ability to love without possession, because true strength is revealed not in holding on, but in letting go with peace. Seneca once wrote, "He suffers more than necessary, who suffers before it is necessary." Worrying about losing someone, fearing rejection, or needing constant reassurance. Those are signs of emotional dependency, not love. Practical advice. When attachment arises, ask, is this love or is this fear of loss? Accept that nothing and no one truly belongs to you. Focus on what you can give, not what you can control. A woman never forgets a man who could love her fully and still walk away with dignity when it was time There is a quiet strength that only the truly wise possess, and the ability to care deeply, without clinging desperately. This is the heart of Stoic detachment. It's not about being cold, unfeeling, or distant. It's about freedom, emotional, spiritual, and mental freedom. A Stoic man practices detachment without indifference. He doesn't suppress his emotions, he masters them. He doesn't reject love, he simply refuses to be enslaved by it. This is one of the most misunderstood and powerful principles in Stoic philosophy. And when a man learns to embody it, he becomes unforgettable, not just to women, but to everyone who crosses his path. The essence of Stoic detachment. Don't demand that things happen as you wish, but wish that they happen as they do happen, and you will go on well. Epictetus. To understand Stoic detachment, we must start with what it's not. Detachment isn't about apathy. It's not saying, I don't care. It's about saying, I care deeply, but I don't depend on outcomes I can't control. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic teachers, was born a slave. He had no control over his status, his possessions, or even his physical freedom. But he realized something extraordinary, that while his body could be chained, his mind was his own. That realization became the foundation of Stoicism. Freedom is found not in controlling the world, but in controlling your reaction to it. A Stoic man loves, dreams, and works passionately, but he never gives away his peace in exchange for things outside his control. Love without possession. He who loves with purity considers not what he can receive, but what he can give. Seneca. In relationships, many men mistake attachment for love. They cling, they chase, they seek validation, believing that proximity equals connection. But true love is not about possession. It's about presence. It's about being there fully, without needing to own or control the other person. The Stoic man loves deeply, but never loses himself in the process. He understands that the woman he loves is not his property, nor his source of identity. She is her own person, just as he is. Marcus Aurelius once wrote in his Meditations, "Receive without pride, let go without attachment." When a man embodies this mindset, women feel a rare sense of peace around him, because he doesn't suffocate love, he allows it to breathe. Modern example. Think of a man who stays calm when his partner needs space or time alone. He doesn't panic, accuse, or chase. He trusts the bond, trusts himself, and respects her freedom. That calm confidence is magnetic, because it's rooted in strength, not fear. The difference between detachment and indifference many people misunderstand. Stoicism as coldness or emotional detachment. But Stoicism doesn't teach emotional numbness. It teaches emotional clarity. Indifference says, I don't feel. Detachment says, I feel everything, but I'm not a prisoner of those feelings. This difference is crucial. A Stoic man doesn't hide from love, loss, or pain. He experiences them fully, but without losing balance. Seneca once wrote, he suffers more than necessary, who suffers before it is necessary. The indifferent man avoids emotion altogether. He runs from intimacy, avoids vulnerability, and ends up emotionally shallow. The detached man, however, embraces life as it is, beautiful, fragile, temporary, and because of that, he loves with greater depth and appreciation. To be detached is not to reject love, but to free it from the chains of fear. Why detachment is attractive to women. Women are naturally drawn to emotional strength, not arrogance, but centeredness. When a man can care without losing composure, he becomes emotionally safe. Most men crumble under emotional pressure. They react impulsively, chase after validation, or spiral into insecurity when they sense distance. But a Stoic man doesn't panic. He understands that attraction ebbs and flows, that emotions change, that love cannot be forced. His calmness becomes a form of leadership, not dominance, but grounded direction. It communicates, you are free to be who you are, and I am still complete as I am. That is deeply attractive, because in a world full of emotional chaos, calm is power. And women never forget the man who radiated peace when everyone else was desperate for control. Detachment in the face of loss. When you kiss your child, say to yourself, "Tomorrow you may die." Epictetus, at first glance. This quote seems dark, but its message is liberating. Epictetus wasn't telling us to avoid love. He was teaching us to appreciate its impermanence, to live in full awareness that everything we love is temporary. When you accept that nothing is permanent, not relationships, not status, not even life itself, you stop clinging in fear. You stop trying to control what cannot be controlled. A Stoic man doesn't fear loss, because he has already accepted it as part of existence. He loves deeply while knowing he could lose it all, and that awareness makes his love even more sincere. Modern reflection. When a woman leaves, when life takes something precious away, the Stoic doesn't collapse. He feels the pain. He mourns, but he remains upright. He doesn't beg. He doesn't hate. He understands that loss is a teacher, not a punishment. He turns pain into purpose. What stands in the way becomes the way. Marcus Aurelius. Every man faces hardship, heartbreak, failure, rejection, but the Stoic man transforms suffering into strength. Seneca was exiled, betrayed and falsely accused, and yet he wrote his most powerful works during his darkest times. He turned adversity into wisdom. Women deeply admire a man who doesn't crumble under pressure, who uses pain as a forge for character, because he proves he's not fragile, he's tempered by fire. Practical advice. Reflect daily on what challenge is teaching you. Channel pain into growth. Train harder. Study deeper, become better. Remember, you can't always choose your pain, but you can choose your response. When you suffer with purpose, not bitterness, and you become unforgettable, you show the world that even pain bows to your spirit. He values silence and composure. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. Epictetus, the loudest man is rarely the strongest. In a world obsessed with noise and validation, silence is magnetic. The Stoic man doesn't overshare, doesn't argue endlessly, doesn't need to prove his worth through words. He lets his presence speak for him. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself to be like the rock that the waves crash over. Unshaken, that's the kind of energy that draws people in, not because you seek attention, but because you don't need it. Practical advice. Practice listening more, especially when tempted to respond. Avoid gossip, drama, and meaningless debates. Develop comfort in silence. Meditate daily, even for 10 minutes. A calm, composed man radiates security, and that energy is unforgettable. He treats respect as his love language. A man's worth is measured by the worth of what he values. Marcus Aurelius' love fades when respect disappears. A Stoic man knows this, so he never begs for affection or attention. He gives love with dignity and demands respect through action, not argument. He values himself, his time, his energy, his mission. Women feel this instantly. When you hold yourself to a standard, people either rise to meet it or fall away, and that's okay. The Stoic understands that boundaries are a form of self-respect. Practical advice. Don't tolerate disrespect. Even subtle forms. Keep your promises to yourself and others. Show respect before demanding it. Consistency builds credibility. A man who respects himself teaches others how to treat him, and that silent lesson stays. With a woman long after he's gone, he chooses purpose over pleasure. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. Seneca. Modern life offers endless distractions, entertainment, social media, fleeting relationships, but a Stoic man rises above the noise. He lives with purpose. Every action aligns with a deeper mission, to grow, to contribute, to master himself. Seneca and Marcus Aurelius both warned about wasted time. They believed that life's tragedy isn't death, but the time we lose chasing trivialities. A woman never forgets a man who has direction, whose passion burns quietly but steadily. He's not lost in the crowd. He's walking his own path. Practical advice. Define your purpose. What legacy are you building? Cut out distractions. anything that doesn't serve your growth. Keep promises to yourself. Discipline is masculine energy in motion. A man with purpose radiates certainty, and certainty is rare, magnetic, and unforgettable. He loves without losing himself. No man is free who is not master of himself. Epictetus. The Stoic man can open his heart, but never abandon himself in the process. He gives love, but he never trades his identity for approval. Many men lose themselves in relationships, trying to become what they think she wants, rather than who they truly are. But women are most attracted to authenticity, to a man who stands in his truth. Love her deeply, but never lose the man she fell for. The grounded, self-respecting, focused version of yourself. Practical advice. Keep your passions alive. Never stop growing individually. Don't neglect your mission for emotional comfort. Remember, real love strengthens freedom, not dependency. When you love from abundance, not need, your presence leaves an imprint that time cannot erase. Conclusion. The Stoic man is not emotionless. He is emotionally intelligent. He's not detached from love. He's free within love. He walks through life with calm fire, guided by reason, grounded in virtue, and focused on what he can control. He embodies strength, peace, and purpose, and that energy lingers in the memory of every woman he encounters, because in a world full of noise, the Stoic man's silence speaks volumes. In a world of emotional chaos, his composure commands respect. And in a world chasing pleasure, his purpose is unforgettable. That is why women never forget the man who lives by these 7 Stoic principles. If this message resonated with you, take it as a reminder. Greatness begins with mastering the self. Become that man. Calm, focused, unshakable, and watch how the world remembers you.